costing £9,500 a day plus overheads to run that service. Why aren't we seeing people complain about the waste of public money? Each passenger journey costs Transport Scotland £29. Just let that sink in terms of where it comes from. So, that's the foundations upon which we're basing all of our assumptions. If we've got any of them wrong, then we'd like to sort of hear about it. So, back in February, I gave a presentation to the New Community Council because I've got so many options in front of me that I just can't deal with them all. So, we've basically got 9 options. Option 1 is to do nothing about the CalMac service. Option 2 is to await Transport Scotland and Holyrood to provide updates. Option 3 is to continue to lobby the MSPs, Transport Scotland, the Minister for Agriculture and Connectivity, which is what it was called at the time back in February. Continue to support the Gourock Transport Link, who issued the expression of interest for the operation of a ferry service between Dunoon and Gourock. The CGTL people believe that only running cars will make that a profitable service. And they are in the process of talking to people at the moment about the potential to take community asset transfer of the harbour at Dunoon, which is Argyll and Bute Council, and then run their own passenger ferry service and car ferry service over to Gourock. The other option is to replace the existing CalMac service with a combined bus and ferry service, which is going back to the 907 for those that remember it, albeit on a slightly different basis, well, substantially different basis. And then we had 3 others as well. So, we put together a survey to try and gain the views of the people in Cowell. The response to that survey, frankly, is appalling. And if the amount of responses that we've got so far, and it's been in place now for nearly 3 weeks, Gordon Ross got over 1,300 responses to the Western Ferries survey that he did. We've got 249. I can't go to Transport Scotland and say, I've got 249 views here of what should happen to this, when there's 10,000 people live over there. So, potentially, we could be struggling. So that questionnaire is out, and I'd ask anybody here who hasn't filled it out to please do so. So, if I just quickly, the response we got from Transport Scotland to the community needs assessment and where they were in terms of timescales was worthy of a series of Yes Minister. It said absolutely nothing. It really was Sir Humphrey at his best. Now trying to organise a meeting with the Director of Ferries and Jenny Minto to try and get to the bottom of that one. In terms of supporting CGTL, they're in the middle of effectively a procurement process, which I'm actually running on their behalf, but we can't say anything about it because it's confidential until we're actually in a position where we've got some known bidders. But we are talking to people about that. The replacement of the CalMac service with a combined bus and ferry service. We've spoken to West Coast Motors, and the basic premise is a 2-hourly service from Dunoon to Glasgow that would only stop at a limited number of stops between Gourock and Glasgow. Enough to make it a regulated service such that people can use their bus passes, otherwise it becomes a fully commercial service. The priority there is we know a lot of people do onward travel from Gourock, so the idea is to provide direct to Gourock. And we were going to do that by putting a 20-minute service on, departing from Dunoon, which would tie in with Western Ferries. People would not have to get off the bus. They would stay on the bus, it would run to Gourock, and then vice versa, there'd be buses running the other way every 20 minutes. And then every 2 hours, one of those 20-minute buses would actually be the bus that goes direct to Glasgow. So you should be able to get on a bus at 6:30 in Dunoon, and you will be in Buchanan Street before 20 to 9 in the morning. That's the plan with the bus service. Others, well, we've had suggestions of using hydrofoils. We've had suggestions of building a bridge. Building a bridge is an interesting one. The Skye Bridge cost £27 million in 1995. If I look at that now, that would equate to about 50 million today. However, the narrowest point between Cowell and Inverclyde is 1.6 miles. The water is a bit deeper, and we have to accommodate 74 metres of aircraft carrier coming up the Clyde. The Queen's Ferry Crossing was the last bridge that was built and is 1.7 miles. That cost 1.3 billion to build. All right, it was dual carriageway, this one will be single. The other thing to bear in mind is which properties in Inverclyde and which properties in Dunoon are going to be demolished to make way for the infrastructure. My own personal view is that bridge is just pie in the sky. I'm aware there was some plan of linking Helensburgh across to Rosneath, across to the other side of Loch Long. I don't know where anyone thinks the money's going to come from that. Option 4 was building a tunnel. Okay, people say about that. Well, the last tunnel to be opened in the United Kingdom was the Silvertine Road Tunnel in London. It was 0.87 miles long, so that's half the distance, and it cost 2.2 billion. So please, anyone who suggests bridges and tunnels, if they know of the funding source, marvellous.
David, we'll have to watch time over you
Okay,
to take some questions.
fundamentally, we've also got the other issue about infrastructure. And then the other 4, the other one was basically, has anyone else got any other ideas that we haven't thought of? Because I'm open to knowing something else. The purpose of the survey is to focus my attention on what proposal in here we pursue. And if it's a bridge or it's a tunnel, I'll resign. That's where we're at.
David, I'm sorry we're quite tight with time tonight, just the way it's happened actually. But can I ask anybody if they have any questions here for David around this, you know, the Townstown Ferry and any I thought it was Hamish putting his hand up, it was scratching his head. Geraldine?
I'm quite interested in the kind of free enterprise of using other companies. You're talking about the likes of Spark and Bullet and things like that. Quite an interesting one because there were people who showed interest before when they put out to tender.
There were, and as I understand it, when they saw the berthing charges, they weren't interested. But if the community owns Dunoon, effectively the ferry, whoever operates the ferry would actually then take over responsibility for the link span at Dunoon as well. CGTL wouldn't manage it, they'd just hand it over to whoever operated the ferry service.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, trying to get other ferry companies involved, so we spoke to who operates the Orkney ferry? Pentland?
Northlink.
Northlink.
There you go.
Not interested.
Okay. Thank you, David. Any other questions there, Ronnie?
Briefly, I mean, I'm disappointed you only got 249 signatures.
Yeah.
The plus point is that Gourock Community Council respondees are actually number 2 in terms of level of responses.
But it's really a screening for this improvement in the service. And unless you've got them on board, you're going nowhere.
Correct.
One thing to be careful of, if you make comparisons of costs, you've got to make sure you're comparing apples and apples. You know, if you're,
yes.
I'm a big fan of tunnels. I'm not suggesting you build one from Dunoon, but I've seen them operating elsewhere excellently. Great things, they run 27 hours, 24/7, 365. Doesn't matter what weather is, so nothing's good proof. It's a bit windy out there. Ferry lines look quite magnificently. Look at what they're trying through to make their tunnels, which is more akin to what we've got here than the one you compare to the south. Another thing being, and I've removed from another thing because, okay, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Western Ferries are getting 2 new ferries, I think, later this year or the beginning of next year.
Yes.
They wouldn't consider using their 2 older ferries on Gourock Town Centre to Greer Town Centre.
Western Ferries were asked to participate in the tender exercise that we're running, and Western Ferries declined the opportunity. Gordon appears to have no interest in running a Gourock to Dunoon service. He's made some fairly strong statements about what he'd do if he was given the £9,500 a day. For example, he said he'll halve his fares, as an example. And he also hasn't as yet said what he's doing with his old 2 ferries, with the 2 older ferries. that will give him more resilience. He was talking about a towered to Rothsey service briefly, but you're never quite sure what fish he's trying to see if he can catch from suggestions
Thank you.
like that.
Councillor Reynolds, you want to say?
Can I just say Gordon Ross has said exactly the same thing to me. And my answer was that you've got a profitable service. You know, the subsidies on the multiple routes in the west of Scotland that CalMac run are mostly non-profitable. That's why they've got the subsidies to serve the island communities. You know, so when he complains about not getting the subsidies, it's because he's running a very profitable route. The other one, you were talking about cost of tunnels, right? So the Faroes, there are multiple tunnels there. Cost, sorry. No, sorry, it's going.
The thing is, Andrew, if
700 million it was.
700 million, the thing
And
to bear in mind,
Shetland are doing an exercise. You've got
between two islands, is it Yell?
They're doing a pilot on between two islands, but we're looking at connections with the other islands as well, based on the Faroes, which is their money comes from private and public sources.
Okay. The thing is, the only one of those solutions that we have here that can be implemented quickly is the bus service, and that will take 12 weeks. Because that's the length of time the Transport Commissioner needs to be able to approve the route. We also have a problem in that Gordon will not allow priority boarding of the bus. He will make it join the queue. But we think if we have enough public support, Gordon may well cede on that one.
Well, maybe that's, as I say, we're meeting him fairly soon as well, so that's actually... So David, I think, if you were to ask us to do one thing, what is the thing that we could do to best support?
Promote the survey and get the responses
That's what I
back,
thought you'd
because
say.
I have got anecdotal evidence of people having two cars. I've got evidence that people won't work at Dunoon Hospital because they can't reliably get over, or they're using Western ferries and travelling by car. And that is just illogical. If the ferries were fit for purpose, if the ferries were reliable, I also think that actually instead of having a half-hourly service, if we dropped it to an hour with a fit-for-purpose, reliable service that people could turn up in, then that would increase usage. But at the moment, the CalMac service is withering on the vine, and Transport Scotland / Holyrood at some stage you're going to turn around and say it's finishing.
And that was part of the discussion last time as well. So we're more than happy. I'm going to have to watch. Do you want to add a quickly
have
one
a bit
to?
of competition with all the students, all the engineering students, to build tunnels or bridges or whatever. Even if we never do it, just to see if it is possible.
So there's some.
There's an expert bridge builder on the council, Councillor Curley, knows all about bridges.
There you go. We'll get into internal expertise. So can I just say thank you so much. I'm sorry that you had to be so long to actually speak.
Well, it's interesting hearing that the problems over here are exactly the same as the problems over there, except part of the problems over there are caused by the Holyleigh Village chucking out time.
Yeah.
Because over here you probably get the people going over a long period of time. At Hunter's Quay, they all pile out and they go straight to the ferry for 10 o'clock in the morning.
I know. So we will promote the survey, and if there's anything else we can do to help, we're more than happy to do that. And next time I hope you come, we get a wee bit longer and it's not so rushed.
And also, I'd say, involve Sandbank and Hunter's Quay about the car parking problem, because obviously that's not a Dunoon problem.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think Hunter's Quay is near the boundary with Sandbank and Hunter's Quay.
Yeah, no, I don't agree. Now, listen, David, you're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you want to go back and get a ferry or get back.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. We just thank David for coming on. That is fabulous, thank you. Right, okay, moving very swiftly on because I'm trying to get you out in good time. Number 6, I'm just going to do this for number 6. Just give you a little synopsis of what is actually about, because we've had an increase in antisocial behaviour. It concerns Shore Street, Davidson Drive and also Cardwell Road. And because of the situation, you heard me say earlier, because of the situation with the Community Council, we're kind of mopping it up, if you like. It involves things like noise pollution, vandalism. This is allegations of, theft, particular constant stream of people, potential drug dealing is one of the issues, and another issue is, allegations of people being forced out of the house because of neighbours smoking drugs. So we have been raising this with the police, the council, River Clyde Homes, and we've had different responses back. Some of them, we're going to analyse these a little bit more, some of them better than others, and it's a usual multi-agent response. The police are dealing, but somebody else is dealing, but actually nobody's dealing. So we can get that quite often. But I think our councillor is involved, one of the councillors is involved with one of them. You don't need to say any names, of course, but like, is there anything you want to highlight about that one at all?
So it can be, because it's an individual resident.
Yeah.
So I can't say
Of course
too
you
much clearly.
Yeah.
But I have a meeting with River Clyde Homes this week, later on this week,
Right.
which will bring it up.
Yeah.
But there's potentially a theme to be discussed with River Clyde Homes.
Yes.
And that when we have that communal living in
Yes.
terms of flats, that the allocation is mindful of
Yes.
who else is within a block, without so if there's a block with, where there's 5 out of 6 that are elderly, and there's potentially a young person who likes to party, put it that way.
Yeah.
I know I've got young people that like to party as well. So that potentially that from an allocation that maybe is not going to be a great fit. So I'm just going to explore where that sits.
Yeah.
Because especially in Gourock there is a number, that are expecting, and a close suddenly becomes quiet and quite elderly focused, and then it just changes overnight. Not necessarily if anything's going on illegally, but just that dynamic, and be mindful as neighbours. So so I'll need to explore that.
Now, if you could keep us updated on that, the interesting part of that one was that the police were kind of involved with that one and had not detected, any criminality in that particular one. But in the wider one, it was as if the police thought, as I say, River Clyde Homes were dealing and so on, and it was the reporting. There seems to be the reporting wasn't there. So although it's coming into us, it was not getting reported and logged and so on.
What's useful in this scenario as well is when I speak to a number of neighbours, they're reluctant to phone the police or anyone because the biggest fear is someone comes to their door.
Yes.
So the neighbour knows that they've reported it to the wardens or to the police.
Yeah.
So my general advice to them is that if it's during the times that the wardens are on duty, to phone the wardens, and even if it has to be the next day, phone the wardens because you want to log that there's an issue, but specifically state that you don't need anyone to attend, you just want it logged so that you can demonstrate a pattern. So that is an option, because for a case in terms of River Clyde Homes and antisocial behaviour, it's about getting the data and the frequency. So that takes away the fear. You can specifically say to respond, I need you just to log that this is a concern.
I think you're absolutely right. I know certainly my own experience has been that sometimes it can be there's so much logging and people are actually desperate because there's so much logging, but actually nothing's actually done. So I think there's a few wee things in this that we might actually pursue ourselves in terms of the wider issue.
But there is a conversation to be had with Police Scotland and the potential lack of attention in certain areas that are hotspots.
Yes. And the one that was a bit more concerning was the constant stream and the kind of drug dealing. There's a bigger one there, but we don't have enough information about. Maybe speak to you separately a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've got another case that's got quite specific, so I need to have a conversation with Police Scotland.
So that was just, I think, because of time, unless anybody wants to raise anything else, but I think that's probably enough in that one tonight. Does that seem, yeah? Can I just check there's nobody else here to raise antisocial behaviour tonight? Maybe it's about the community council. That's it. No, maybe that's it. Okay, right, thank you. That is us moving on from there. So that's really just us to follow up in actions as the, with police, River Clyde, that we've already started communications with them, so it's following up. Right, okay, communications track. I'm going to be as speedy as possible. What time are we on? I'm just checking this. Yes, it has to be speedy. But let me do it as I usually do and highlight just a few things from here, then open up to questions. Helping River Clyde residents with cost of living. We've since heard, since they came last time, that they have now agreed to initiate quarterly, on a quarterly basis, senior officer attendance at full meetings of Tenants and Residents Association. And that is in the back of there's a strong feeling that the communication was not there despite the words that were being said. So
they used to do that up till about 2 years ago, and then it fell in, but that fell by the wayside, so it started again now.
You'll keep your BDI in that one, will you? Keep us up to date. So just quickly, cost of living support, we had a good discussion, a really good discussion last time, so I think it's me in that action sitting with, and I'm drafting up an action plan around ensuring the cost of living, because we've identified a few roles for the community council in that, few actions around that, and we'll promote that on social media once that's out. I would say we've got that one, doing social behaviour. Binny Lane, oh my goodness, Binny Lane. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for forwarding all the stuff in Binny Lane. But at the bottom seems to come to the fact that the owners can still not be identified, and the only way to identify them is by, it's going to cost solicitors and a cost. Which seems a little ridiculous, really, when you look at the kind of state of it is. Is there anything you would want to add to that? I read through all the emails, but
the new owner of the big house has been built there. He obviously has building it. The lawyers know something about it. So it's maybe looking for cooperation from them for information.
Oh right, so is that did you say the builder? Did you say who's that you said?
Well, it's the owner.
The owner.
There's a big new house there,
right.
Tintab used to be.
So
obviously, he must have some information in his title deeds or something.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's whether he'd be willing to cooperate on that.
Sounds quite good.
I haven't investigated that yet. So I think Councillor Crowther has suggested. Like you, I haven't had a chance to read it in detail because Councillor Crowther is
always very
detailed. So it's actually picking out what would be useful action to take from it.
I can see, because you seem to have tried just about everything when I read through. But would you mean the community council reaching out, or do you want us to do it as a community council? It's up to you.
I mean, I get involved for a different reason, because somebody in Royal Street was concerned about a tree that was bringing down their back wall, and who was responsible for it. That's my involvement, not actually the state of the road.
So why don't we'll just do it as a community council? So and
you can bring me in if you think it will help.
I'll try.
It's particularly as Councillor Crowther has delved into.
If anybody has a name, like looking at actually at least know who the person is to actually write to, that's helpful, and we'll do the writing and contact around it. We'll find out later, but we'll follow up with a letter. Done that. Where are we? I'm making still waiting in the Albert Road, Court, still waiting in the report from the independent consultant. I've lost my absolute page here. Let me just see. I think the only one. I'm just looking. Oh yes, McGill's. We are desperate for a meeting with McGill, so we're going to push quite hard again now about an actual meeting, because that's to address all of the impact and residents of the loss of the bus service. Play activities for children. Thanks to Carol that came tonight, said a couple of things as well from beforehand. But we had a good response because children's rights law now, and we've been really engaging with school children, and they've been saying one of their priorities is play spaces. And there's a whole list you can see by the actual tracker, and the council are open to start a dialogue in how to prioritise it and update us. I've already seen a few things to do with the things they've asked for, things that are already in the pipeline, and maybe just other things that we can maybe chat through to prioritise. So that's at least positive. And I think the only other thing, which is an important one, I would like to add to this, it's actually down in the monitoring, is Gourock medical practice. Now, can I pass over to you just to kind of raise? Is that okay? Yeah.
Gourock medical practice they issued a statement on the 27th of May, it's on their website, saying that there would be a service disruption and it's due to IT systems being installed. I am a patient. I did get messages one to say that they'll be having a half day on the 4th of June for training and a half day on the 10th of June for training. Then there was a follow-up message to say, due to the integration of the new systems, that they would be having the disrupted service from the 10th of June to the 23rd of June. And what that means is the e-consult service is no longer there. The routine appointments and services are not available. Urgent clinical matters only will be dealt with. Prescriptions are limited to urgent requests only. If you have a repeat prescription, it had to be in by the 9th of June. If you didn't have it in by the 9th of June, tough, you're not getting it to 23rd. And they're saying that there are no access to records, to patient records, so access to patient records are unavailable. Service capacity will be significantly reduced and delays are expected. So what this means is if you want a doctor's appointment, you're not going to get it. I telephoned last Tuesday with an issue which was quite important, and they said that they thought the question I had was for a doctor, but I was told that it would probably need to be assessed. However, it was to go to the pharmacist first, and depending on what the pharmacist said, the next day, if I still was urgent, then to fill in the e-consult form, which was then taken down. There's no e-consult form, so it really, and there's no provision been made at all for healthcare, none whatsoever.
I've got a couple of hands there. I'm going to take over here and then here.
I was also online and I had no information from the health centre at all.
I've just seen my text here.
I've spoken to several people. Some people have had text messages. I went online and had a look. I downloaded this from the website because I wanted to see in detail just exactly what they're saying. It's Greater Glasgow and Clyde NHS who are putting this system into place, but they've obviously made absolutely no provision at all for continued medical care, because if your doctor can't access your records.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to a little, keep it through the chair, but I'm going to a very short little thing from everybody because I'm watching time, and it's really, because this already was an issue that we had people along with, were monitoring, and this is a kind of recent issue in terms of what it is, so we can easily be raising, we did say to the practice we would be raising things if it was brought to our attention, but we're going to just take some other thoughts now. We've got Councillor Reynolds over here then, Callum. Yeah.
Just a quick point on medication. If you repeat medication, the pharmacies have a system in place where if you do run out, you can go there and get an urgent supply.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just a point. I think it's just a point of information.
It may seem like a gripe, but I'm just making sure that it doesn't happen to anyone else, because while we're on the subject of the Gourock medical practice, about a fortnight ago, I was expecting to get antibiotics because I was quite stuffed up, and the advanced nurse practitioner, she found out there was something wrong with my heart. Okay, she gave me a number. She says, I want you to phone this. It's a treatment room to get an ECG and to get bloods taken. And when I left there on the Tuesday, I said I better phone, so I phoned them, and I got, we can't take your call at the moment, please call back later. I got that 5 times. On a Wednesday, the day after it, I got it 6 times. So I went over on the Thursday and I saw a nurse at the treatment room, and she said, she took the details, and then she come back and she said, I can't give you an appointment because you're not in the system. I says, pardon? And I went down to the reception, and the receptionist says, we've got a referral for him, so he should be in the system. So she went and got the manager, and the manager went up, and she come, and eventually she come back and she said, we don't control them, but unfortunately the nurse is adamant that because you're not in the system she can't give you an appointment. All I can suggest is that if you're in Gourock, I'll give you this referral form, and you can go up to Gourock Health Centre, and they'll maybe put you on a system. I says, and what happens if I collapse or something happens as I go to, when I'm in Gourock? She just rubs her shoulders. So, it so happened I was in Gourock and I got a taxi up to her.